Hi, everyone. This is Rich Berliner from CDIA, the Connected Digital Infrastructure Association. I'm here today with Shane Hague from SOLiD. And Shane, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being with me today.
Thanks, Rich. Good to be here.
And so I have to say, I love your background. That is stupendous and a credit to the marketing department there of somehow getting somebody to pull that off. But
New
I
York
love
City MTA, one of our pride and joy projects going back well over a decade, and represents the longevity of the SOLiD product. I'll tell you at some point if I spend some time alone with you what we believe
it.
happened to get get
And
this
does
image.
that mean that you guys have used SOLiD equipment in the New York City subway?
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to be selected for the New York subway probably back in 2012, and then just a couple of years ago after Bolden put together mobility and transit wireless, they went to RFP for the tunnel expansion. Our initial phase of the project was for the stations. We were actually awarded the tunnel expansion project as well. So a great example of our dominance in transportation. Similarly, with that customer, we're in the London subway, we're in Boston, the BART system, et cetera. Transportation is
Wow.
one of our main verticals.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting, and that's very impressive, quite frankly. So, tell me about yourself first and foremost. Let's start off with that. What's your position at SOLiD, and where did you come from? How did you get to this position?
Sure, glad to. I'm one of those fortunate or unfortunate folks that stumbled into in-building wireless in 1998. So my position here, I support sales, business development, marketing teams here at SOLiD. Been with the company since 2011. I had a 2-year departure in 2018, came back in 2020. So I've been here almost since the beginning. SOLiD got started in the US around 2010. Historically, I studied electrical engineering at Iowa State, uh, bumbled into a summer internship in the telecom space with US West, if you remember the Baby Bells.
Yeah.
That led to a co-op with Nortel to build the Sprint PCS network. And suddenly, my senior semester at college, I had job offers with telecom companies, and I ended up landing with AG Communication Systems, which was an AT&T GTE merger, became part of Lucent, and that little group at AG had a business that was just getting involved in proposing to AT&T's wireless office services team, which was putting in building systems tied to their PBX that enabled single number reachability. It's called WAS solutions. And I believe it was AG competing with Ericsson. They were the two main suppliers. So I fell into in-building wireless in 1998. Bounced around from there. Actually sold in-building antennas for a few years, perhaps with your legacy company, if I remember correctly,
Yep.
around 2001. And then went to Nextel when they were sort of the fledgling takeoff carrier group that was developing in-building systems, and stayed through the Sprint merger and then landed here at SOLiD. So I've done nothing but in-building 95% of my career, a little bit of macro work along the way. But, strangely, this has been my path almost since graduation.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that pathway to that because in my construction days, what you were referring to, I went to a trade show and had someone come up to me and say, "You guys do in building wireless, don't you?" Sure, we do. And then when the customer walked away, I said, "What's in building wireless?"
Right.
And so that's how I got started in that. But it's really all the same thing. So um, it's a different set of equipment and a different set of engineering, but it's basically wireless, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an interesting ride to watch it over the
Absolutely.
course of almost 30 years turn into almost a mainstay now. It's becoming not quite as well known as Wi-Fi, but in-building cellular is becoming table stakes for a lot of commercial buildings, as you're well
Well, the
aware.
bottom line is that 80% of calls are done indoors. So, it's a natural. And that's why, we're doing these kinds of events for real estate owners because they need to understand that it's just like you said, it's table stakes nowadays for your building to have good in-building coverage, whether that's Wi-Fi, private networks, just plain old vanilla in-building wireless. It's very important nowadays. So tell me about SOLiD. I go back away with the company and a very, very good, well-liked, well-regarded product in the industry. But tell me about SOLiD from your standpoint and where you sit.
Sure. I think what's most interesting about the company that people don't know is we're really global, and this is becoming a global marketplace. Every month over month, more and more customers are overlapping, reaching across the ocean, wanting to talk about collaboration. And fortunately for us, we're well represented globally, and a lot of people don't understand that. So we're a South Korean-based company. I believe October will mark our 28th year in business globally. Same two co-founders, our co-CEOs, they're still here operating the business. In the US, like I mentioned earlier, been around since 2010. So we're, up on 16 plus years in business now here. Most surprisingly for a lot of folks is the fact that we're actually the dominant OEM from a market share perspective in the EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And we just launched business in Australia. So we're truly developing what's closely resembling a global footprint, and we're known for DAS here in the U.S., but globally we've done other products and solutions as well. Military solutions. We're in the satellite space. We're in the optical transport space, and most notably in the Open RAN space. We've actually delivered nearly 25,000 O-RAN radios here in the U.S.
Wow.
But we did that through a private labeling arrangement with a RAN company who supplied those radios to one of the three big carriers. So pretty deep expertise in radio technology. DAS just happens to be what we're known for here in North America, but that's an often overlooked facet of the business that's starting to give us an advantage.
It's really interesting why we do these podcasts, because that was, although I followed the company for many, many years, that's information I really wasn't aware of. And so it's great to be able to do these things and get the information out there and have people understand more about the company. So one of the things that I wanted to ask about was you've changed your go-to-market strategy a bit of late. And you've also got a new product line or a new way of marketing this called Engenesis. So can you kind of give us the boil out, elevator pitch, if you will, on the go-to-market strategy now and this Engenesis product?
Yeah, so if it's okay with you, I'll flip the order because
Please.
I think it helps paint the picture a little bit more efficiently. And I'll actually expand to say not only one new product, but really two or three new products if you want to count Open RAN. So, a year ago at this time, Rich, if we'd had this interview, I could really only talk about our mainstay product called Alliance. And that's the analog DAS that's here in the subway and all the other big venues and corporate offices here in the US. That's the platform that arrived here in 2010. We continue to feed it, care for it, develop it, enhance it. Just a few months ago, we launched our 4th generation head-end chassis for the Alliance platform, reducing the space and the power consumption required at the head-end location, trying to keep the Alliance platform relevant and competitive. So that alone is a compelling offering that we've had in market for a long time. And then I'd say Mobile World Congress last fall. So I believe that was October. We came to market and announced our BARS product. BARS is a Part 20 light enterprise DAS. It's based on the FCC Part 20 consumer requirements, competes with some of the other Part 20 products out in the space. That was meant to help us compete with those smaller to medium-sized venues, dubbed, you've heard the term middle prize.
Right.
That term was actually coined here at SOLiD about 11 years ago. Middle prize was a term that was developed here by our marketing department. So we now have a middle prize solution to complement the Alliance DAS. And then in May at the ConnectX conference in Fort Lauderdale, we officially announced our Engenesis platform. And as it turns out, that's really not new. I mentioned our strength around the world. We dominate in the European market with our Engenesis DAS, which is our 4th generation digital platform. So we've been offering a digital DAS in South Korea, Japan, Europe, Middle East. We're bringing that technology, which is tried and true, robust, mature. It's winning sports stadiums, airports, convention centers, subway systems in Europe. We brought that platform to the US. We just had our general availability. I believe that was on the 31st of July. So we just went GA with that product, meaning we can accept purchase orders, and we're going to start shipping that product in November, Q4 of this year. So we have the Alliance DAS. We had the BARS Part 20 DAS. We're bringing our Engenesis digital DAS. And if you count the Open RAN technology, which I just mentioned, which was a quietly kept secret, sort of as its own platform or technology, if you go to our webpage now, we have 4 options to show you as opposed to the one product that we had a year ago.
And the marketing team gave me some notes that it was 1 to 4. So that's one product line was Alliance before. Now you have 4 different products to sell.
Exactly. So
Gotcha.
to tie that in then to the go-to-market situation, we've all seen the same messaging from the operators or the carriers, which is that they don't have the capital to address all of these in-building systems at this point. They're focused on competing for subscribers. The last time you walked into an AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon store, I don't think they raised your monthly bill. They probably gave you more data and a subsidized device for the same or lower price than you were paying previously. They're in a very competitive situation. So they don't have the capital to pay for all these in-building systems. And they've been saying that now uniformly for about 2 years. So, this is the first time in my 28-year career when all of the operators have said the same thing consistently for a long period of time and have stuck to it. In the past, there was always one carrier that would pull the customer aside and say, actually, we have a budget for in-building, or we're about to make a tremendous advancement in spending or modernization of the network. We don't see that happening. So as a result, a lot of the folks in the manufacturing and integrator space and the third-party owners are pivoting our business models, starting to look at what does this in-building space look like when we're not dependent on the operators to pay for these systems. And that means, really an adjustment to your go-to-market strategy. So we're starting to look at verticalization, specialty. I mentioned transportation being a strong vertical for us. Similarly, healthcare, data centers are 2 other areas where we dominate from a market share perspective very quietly. People don't know that. And then we were formerly really successful in the sports vertical. We've been successful globally in sports, but in the US for the last number of years, we haven't been very aggressive or forceful in that space. Now that we're bringing the nGenesis platform, it's perfectly suited for those large sports venues. And the BARS platform that we just talked about is going to be great for team headquarter offices, for training facilities, for temporary deployments where a traditional big DAS doesn't make sense financially or technologically. So suddenly we're able to pivot back toward the sports domain as well. So that means we're going to start going to market with more of a vertical centric approach. You may see us in the future tailor our business team and our go-to-market team with more of a focus on specific vertical expertise, subject matter experts. And then similarly, the other thing that's necessary when you're trying to address a market where, as we just discussed, cellular or DAS is becoming table stakes. If the building owners and your customer community, the commercial office owners, are starting to all ask for cellular coverage, they're probably not calling SOLiD directly. They're calling a low voltage integrator. They're calling a technology consultant, a systems integrator. Well, in order to support that ecosystem, we need to be more channel centric, which means tailoring our sales approach toward distribution, toward technology consultants, toward systems integrators, to broaden out our sales staff by having their sales teams also recommend and understand SOLiD. So It's really a market approach that we're focused on going into 2027.
Well, that makes total sense. You can't go in, if you're an expert, you've been putting in systems in stadiums, and you go into a hospital, and now all of a sudden there are 5 people with all different thoughts and needs in that hospital setup, and you're not used to that. That's going to be a difficult sell. So, right peg, right hole is my approach to it. But I couldn't agree more with you on the whole topic of the carriers. You're joining us, and you're a sponsor for the event we're doing in Las Vegas on September 1st at Planet Hollywood, the CDIA Real Estate and Digital Infrastructure Summit. But we have not looked to the carriers to participate or attend because we've heard plenty of their speeches saying we're not paying. And so we thought, it's much more important to have the real estate folks and folks like you and integrators involved in the discussion here about this, because what can the carriers add besides we're not paying? And so not to be cruel or unpleasant in any way, but we just understand that they have to sit back now and let the flow of equipment get into these buildings with their cooperation. But
Right.
certainly they're not going to pick up the tab for these things as they did for many, many years. So I
Yeah.
totally agree
And
with you.
we've heard some folks aptly, describe cellular coverage as perhaps the fourth utility. And I don't disagree with that. When you're building a building, the general contractor and the developer doesn't call the city municipal water company and ask the water company to plumb their building. The water pipes and the faucets, and it's the responsibility of the building owner. Same thing with electrical wiring. The utility company brings it to the demarc of the building, and then the interior wiring and outlets, responsibility of the owner and the GC. Cellular is trending toward that same pattern, and the carriers are going to bring the service to the demarc. And at that point, going forward, I think it's largely becoming the responsibility of the occupants, the tenants, the landlords, the owners of those buildings to outfit the building with appropriate
Yeah, and the
conditions.
difference is really the other utilities are monopolies. And so,
Right.
you had a competitive situation with the carriers, and they wanted to get an advantage over each other. And then they realized that, spending that kind of money and never seeing a return probably wasn't the smartest thing for them to do. So I think it's actually very healthy for we have gone forward. When we started this, we started as the In-Building Wireless Association, but we've changed the name of the entire enterprise to CDIA, Connected Digital Infrastructure Association, because our real estate clients came to us and said, we're not interested in building wireless as a standalone. We're looking at it as part of our overall digital infrastructure play. And I think that's very healthy because your building management systems play into that. Your all your sensors and all the things that go into running a piece of real estate are affected by this, but it has to be looked at as part of the infrastructure. And I think exactly as you said, now it's part of the fourth utility, but it's no longer just looked at as like, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Right.
Have to have that.
That's really reassuring to hear. Actually, I'm smiling because, cellular has always been a last minute problem where the occupants of the building move in, they complain, they tell their landlord or their owner, this isn't going to work for me. And then there's a mad scramble for an unbudgeted solution. And it becomes scrutinized and scaled down and peeled back until a Band-Aid gets put on instead of looked at as an upfront technology solution that's integrated with the rest of the digital infrastructure. So just to hear you say that gives me hope that we're not going to be looked at as these frustrating one-offs in the near future.
No, but I think you will be looked at as part of the integration of all of the things that go into running an efficient building in this day and age, whether that's AI, digital twins, all of those aspects, building management systems, et cetera, all go now to making sure that you have a building that is robust enough from a communication standpoint, which kind of leads me into one of the topics that I really wanted to pick your brain about here is the AI and the new AI edge, which I kind of like to take credit for coining the new AI edge because we've talked about the edge, for a long time in wireless, and it sort of never happened. But the new AI edge is a very important aspect to this, and making sure that your communication stack in your building is robust enough for all of those things to happen is important. How do you view that, and how does SOLiD look at that from the standpoint of your products and what you're putting into buildings?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a continuation of what's been happening for us for years, and there's always been is Wi-Fi enough? Can I run all my wireless communications over Wi-Fi? And I think Wi-Fi is still absolutely necessary, and
No
it's
doubt.
supplemental to cellular, and cellular supplemental to Wi-Fi. Um, the more bandwidth that we try and drive to a mobile device, and the more applications we're trying to drive to, whether it's a camera or a sensor or a mobile device or a laptop, at the end of the day, cellular is nothing more than the base ecosystem to enable AI and to enable all these other things to work. And you can have all the wonderful devices and applications you want with the right chipsets. But if you don't have a certain amount of capacity and steady, even service provided from your wireless network, if you intend to mobilize those applications, you're going to be disappointed. So our product is boring, vanilla. It's kind of the cement foundation. It's the fixture to which the other applications like AI get attached to. So this just, the proliferation of AI just cements the necessity of in-building 5G. And we know that 5G doesn't penetrate buildings from outside, especially all these new appropriately designed, LEED certified buildings with steel and glass. 5G is not coming indoors from outside. So it necessitates an in-building system, and a cellular system is proven to be just a little bit more effective for delivering consistent behavior as opposed to Wi-Fi. So I think it just means that we're just even more a necessity and the foundation of an AI ecosystem.
No doubt. And again, I think one of the things that we're doing at this show, we've got two folks from NVIDIA. One is a gentleman who's the head of 5G, 6G systems, who's doing a keynote, and the other fellow is the former CIO of Las Vegas, who's coming and speaking. He is now with NVIDIA, but he's got an incredible amount of information on what they did back in the day in Las Vegas. And he's got stories that are really incredible, and people are going to really be interested in hearing at this event. But one of the things I will tell you is ran into a company called LVT, and they've got those crank up towers that are in the parking lot of Target. And LVT happens to have their cameras and their lights, and there's all kinds of things. It's an intelligent system. And what does it have in their computer system internally? NVIDIA chips. And so when we started to discuss this with LVT, they said, well, we have NVIDIA chips in there, so this is intelligent. It can actually tell whether somebody's, getting into their car or robbing that car, and it has all kinds of features. And one of the things was, my question, of course, was, well, how are you communicating back to your hubs? Cellular, of course. So that's an important aspect to this whole situation, is that all of that. And, there's certain places where they don't have good coverage. They will use a Wi-Fi backup. But basically, without cellular, you're really sort of dead in the water here. And so I'm really heartened to not only have SOLiD as a sponsor at our event, but to have you here with the podcast, Shane, because you've really put this all very eloquently about what you're doing and what the marketplace looks like. And I appreciate that very much.
Thanks. I'm excited to be there. And actually, I believe the gentleman formerly from Las Vegas, was that a CBRS network?
It was a CBRS network. And
So
I believe
the other
that
interesting facet.
I believe that Las Vegas abandoned that. So
Is that right?
I'm not sure. Michael is going to talk about that a little bit, but what the circumstances are and why they did that. But yes, they did build out a private network in Las Vegas, and he is a fascinating guy who's going to be discussing this. So his name is Michael Lee Sherwood.
Okay, I'll look forward to that. I think I saw him present in the past, and what caught my attention when you mentioned his participation, the FCC adjusted their rules for CBRS early this year as well. And it's not all that widely known, but I believe it was January. New policy came out from the FCC allowing CBRS to be delivered over an active DAS. And as it turns out, SOLiD has a fiber to the edge radio on our Alliance platform, and we're planning a low power and medium power radio and our Genesis platform that also accommodate the CBRS band. So as if you look back historically the last few years, if you had a DAS in your building, you generally needed to deploy a separate and parallel CBRS network, which can get quite costly. Pulling two sets of cables, laying out two sets of radios. Based on this new policy, what DAS is really good at is consolidating and enabling multiple various technologies side by side. Traditionally, it's been cellular, commercial bands. You have traditional LMR, two-way radio, UHF, VHF, you have public safety radio. Occasionally, some DASs accommodate 900 megahertz paging, and now we can add CBRS to it as of early this year. And that has been maybe the rookie of the year for us in terms of conversation starters that we didn't anticipate, is the concept of adding CBRS to a commercial DAS. And that's just one other reason that you're starting to see now, a need to deliver one ecosystem up front in your planning process, as you were just describing, to potentially avoid installation of two overlapping technologies.
That's quite a bundle. All the things that you just named, putting that into a system in a building is quite a bundle. And I'll leave you with the comment that, reaching out to a company like SOLiD that has that kind of experience and that kind of ability is really the move that I think real estate owners should be aware of and should guide their consultants and anyone working on their buildings to look at SOLiD's product. So
really appreciate that. We love the opportunity.
well, Shane, you've been terrific, and I really appreciate it. We've covered a lot of ground, and I want to make sure that we don't bore everybody to tears in going too long with this. But I think you've done a very concise job of explaining not only the climate right now, but also SOLiD and what you guys do. I'm looking forward to having you at our event on September 1st at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas, and SOLiD will be one of our sponsors. So join us there. Shane Hague with SOLiD. And thank you so much for being with us. This is Rich Berliner from CDIA, I should say. Easy for you to say. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Rich. See you in Las Vegas.